Hey, don't turn it off yet. Here's what's coming up on the Nice Guys on Business.
The reason that people hire me is because I help people to make tribes that are going to be fun to lead. They're going to be real communities that are going to add value to people, and they're going to create opportunities for everyone involved.
Do you have an iPhone or do you have something inferior?
Of course I have an iPhone.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Sounds Irish. That's dumb. Need an education on how to grow your business? The Nice Guys are here to help. Learn about great customer service, networking, and how just being nice can help you prosper. Now, here are your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
Hey, Nice Guy community. It's Monday. Welcome back. We are interviewing Dan Rice today. My name is Strickland Bonner. On the other side of the microphone, Doug fucking Sandler.
So you want to tell everybody why you're going so slow today, Strickland?
So Doug said that I do my welcome back too quick. And basically when the podcast starts, everybody's like, whoa, fucking chill. Oh my God. So I'm slowing it down a little bit.
It's like they're grabbing a rope and
yeah, for Sean Carpenter, like listening at double speed. It's like, hey, welcome back. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's all good.
Welcome, everybody. It's been a prosperous and lovely weekend. As you are listening to this, maybe driving around in the rain or snow in some parts of the Northeast.
Oh, fucking rub it in, right?
Just so you know, right now, as of the time that you are listening to this, I am sitting on a beach in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Okay.
Fucking rub it in.
If you'd like to send any champagne my way, I'm staying at Bahia Beach. That is a wonderful part of San Juan in Puerto Rico. It's actually outside of San Juan. It is part of the St. Regis collection of hotels.
Hey, Doug, can I speak for the entire community and say we don't give a shit? Let's get to the interview with Dan Rice.
You could say that, but I would rather dwell on this just a little longer. You know what? That is the beauty of having such a wonderful community, Strickland, is that we can actually spend a little bit of time sharing the good fortune that we have had.
We can share even more if you are a Patreon patronage.
Yeah,
what is it?
Yeah, Patreonage. Go to patreon.com/nice guys. Today was a total shit show of pre-recording stuff. Yeah. If you want to hear Strickland really just tee off on somebody who I thought actually he was a friend of, you want to head over, just put your $2 in. Even if you put in $2 and you cancel next month, it's worth the $2 that you are going to invest today to hear Strickland literally tease off on someone, and I can't. It might be somebody that listens to our regular show, who is a cheap bastard anyway. So I know he's not.
So he'll never pay the $2 a month to check it out.
Yeah, put patreon.com/nice guys. Get over there and check it out. Oh
Money back guarantee. If you don't feel that you got your $2 worth when you see the bonus content, we'll send it back to you.
I think we'd really need to turn the switch at some point, Strick, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow. But we need to start chatting to the Nice Guy community like they are just listening to our conversation.
Yep, it's true.
Oftentimes I will catch myself making reference to the Nice Guy community. And while I love our community, and that's what today's show is all about, because Dan Rice is our community manager over on Facebook, I think that our community deserves to be treated the way we treat each other.
Which is shitty, yeah. So in television, they call this exposition. Like if you've ever seen any of these procedural shows like Bones or something, right? Like they'll be in the lab and they'll say, hey, I see this groove on the metacarpal. And they'll say, well, that groove on the metacarpal must mean that there was a blade that was used that's 4 to 6 inches long, which again, if you were really in the lab, you'd fucking know that. And so you wouldn't have to say that exposition. That's what we're going to do.
Well, wait,
we're just not going to explain ourselves.
Hold on a second, though. I don't even know that we want to go to that level. Is anything that we actually say so complicated, even the relationships that we have with people and the things that we do, that we really need to say Nice Guy community or make reference to the fact that we know they're listening? Guys, you know you're listening. If you're listening right now, you're part of our community. We value you. So maybe at the top of the show, we explain to everybody that we love them and we know that they're here, and we just get on with the show as though they were just sitting in the car as a fly on the wall listening to us. And if you don't get some of the inside jokes, We have 335 episodes. Go back and listen to the fucking ones you missed.
Or you can join for $5 a month on Patreon and be a part of the Slack group that we started, and you can ask somebody else to get you into the inside track.
That's even crazier. So $2 gets you the shit show of today on Patreon. And this is not a Patreon commercial, although it is funny. It's become a Patreon commercial. The $2 gets you access to the behind the scenes little like things, the digs that we just gave. The $5, oh my gosh, that gets you so in the inner circle. You're part of a Slack group. This morning we had, I don't even know how many were on the Slack group. I think 8 or 9. This is just a conversation with all 8 or 9 of us. And I could not, my wife was so mad at me today. She's like, are you going to put that down to have breakfast?
Well, Prosh said the same thing. Prosh, we were like texting, and Prosh was like...
No, it was Paul. I think it was Paul.
Was it Paul?
Yeah, Paul was trying to have breakfast.
My wife is saying, I got to put limits. It's time to go out to brunch. We got to go.
It's limits time.
I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Don't tell anybody. We do have an interview today with Dan Rice.
Oh, we do?
This is an interview day. Today's Monday. Dan Rice is our community leader on Facebook. Our community manager. He actually set up our Facebook community. The guy is amazing. He's really incredible. And this is what he does for a living.
Yeah, he gets on the show. He talks to us about why community is so important. And it's obvious now that we have a community on Facebook why it is so important to not only have a Facebook community, but also to continue to build that community in spots other than there, to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, through our Slack account, all sorts of ways. But Dan really gets into it, and he explains what the significance is to having a community for your group. It really does help you with your engagement. And if you have a business, even if you don't have a podcast, but if you have a business and you really want to have a group of cohesive, tight, really, really raving fans, the community is the way to go. So I love this interview with Dan. And Dan's been a good buddy. I started out with him. He was a coaching client of mine. And then he developed we just started exchanging like, hey, can you help me with this? And I would help him with that. And he would help me with stuff. And we just, it just became a friendship. And again, that's all a part of this community is what it's all about, is becoming friends with the people that are in it. If you're driving in your car and you don't give a shit about any of that stuff, well, you know what? That's crazy, because it is all about relationships. So check out this interview with Dan Rice today.
Yeah, his company's called Leading From Anywhere, and really that's what it's about. You don't have to have that title of the CEO or the C-suite or whatever. You can lead from anywhere, and that's what his Facebook group organizations can help you stay organized and basically lead from anywhere.
All right, so let's get to the interview. Dan Rice, the C-Suite Network is definitely the area where you will find our show. I can't believe they're still carrying us. Oh, actually, Strick, some great information about tomorrow, about the Oscar award-winning nominee that is going to be a part of our show soon. This is going to be great. So anyway, for right now, let's get to the interview with Dan Rice. We are proud to be affiliated with the C-Suite Radio Network. A better guy in the nice guy community you cannot find with us since almost day one, or maybe somewhere around day one. Dan Rice originally started as a coaching client for me, but I have watched the reinvention of this guy in complete awe. It's amazing. Funkin' fan with a British accent. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast, Dan Rice.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Doug. It's brilliant to be on the show.
I love it. Already a British word. We've got the word brilliant coming out. This is good. This is good. So no longer the behind the scenes Dan. Is it kind of feel weird, or is this just like the natural progression of where you thought you were going to be heading anyway?
I'd love to say it felt like the natural progression, but actually this is a bit of a strange experience being on the other side. It's almost like I said in the group, it's kind of breaking that other side of the wall and being on the other side of something that you've listened to for so long. Coming
out of the womb, if you will, Dan. Is that right? So let's start here, Dan. You've bootstrapped your way all along. I mean, I know that you're not a guy that's gotten some huge funding and by this huge angel investor and big prominent company that's showered you with money. So share with the nice guy community what you've been doing all along to really start with your company Leading From Anywhere, which is this amazing brainchild of your own. So talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when I left university, if we go back that far, I actually went into a job in IT sales. And it wasn't so much that I did IT sales. It was more that I specialized in charity and membership organizations. And that sort of started up my interest in how people are interacting with their members and things. And so it's kind of built up from combining that interest with an interest in startup businesses, then got me thinking, well, I need to be leaving this job that I'm doing. It's kind of I'm going in a trajectory that is seen as an improving trajectory by most people. But for me, I was kind of thinking, well, I need to do something else. I need to do something a bit different. And so that's when I sort of left and I started experimenting with a few ideas and things. I had a very bad project that I put together and that was good fun, but it kind of didn't work out.
Right.
It was terrible. And now I look back at it, I think, what on earth was I doing? But we've gone through that iteration and I've worked for a few startups along the way, which has obviously prepared me and put me in good stead for doing my own now, which is where I am at the moment.
So provide just a little advice. I mean, what is that, you get that gut feeling that, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Or should I be doing this? And it's the same feeling that we all get. And you have to combine, or you have to kind of temper the butterflies that are going off in your stomach with, yeah, but this could be something that's really, really good and takes me down a road that I want to go. So just share how that feeling is and how do you kind of overcome it? Because I know that you're a guy that like all of us, you're a sensitive guy. You kind of let it get to you a little bit, don't you?
Oh yes, I am possibly the most anxious person, but also one of the best people at pretending I'm not that I know. And I sort of get over it, and I've always had to sort of train myself that, right, well, you've got something you're excited about. Now is the time to go for it. And I think I've put a few people around me who will give me a bit of a kicking in that direction. Between my friends and my wife and everything. So it's kind of like between them, they've kind of got me to this point where I have gone from being one of these guys that sort of knows a lot, but doesn't really do anything with it, to actually doing a bit more and then realizing actually I don't all know all that much, but what I did know was still valuable. And so it's just understanding that there is a value in what you've got and then going, right, well, now I've got to go for this idea because it's obviously making a big impact to some people. And if I keep it to myself, then nobody's ever going to benefit from that.
Oh, totally. And that's really what I pulled out of that first coaching call that we sat through together, was that you had so many great ideas, and I could hear in your voice and in your history really that you weren't going to get off the dime, and it was almost like you needed that support around you. It certainly you needed your wife to be able to say, "Hey, Dan, you've got this. You can do it." And then what's amazing about it is how many people saw this in you and the ability that you could be successful at something other than working for somebody else, but you didn't believe in yourself. And isn't that really where a lot of entrepreneurs really are? It's just getting beyond that fear.
Yeah, and especially I found with just about every person that I end up working with now, they typically completely undervalue themselves in something that they're very good at. It's not always their best thing, but it's always something that's pretty close to their best thing that they're completely devaluing.
Right.
I've seen a couple of, it's happened sort of 3 or 4 times where I've had people who are just thinking they're hideous at doing videos. And I'm sat there thinking, this is what you should be doing all your content as. It is so much better than your writing. But because they feel comfortable doing writing,
basically,
they go back to it.
Your writing sucks, man, and you need to go to your videos.
For want of a nicer way to put it, yeah, that's pretty much where I'm coming from. It's when you get that sort of that difference between the quality level of the writing. I mean, the writing was good, but it's nothing anywhere near as good as the video, which is phenomenal in a couple of instances in particular. And the more I see that happen to other people, the more I realize, well, actually, I'm probably one of those people that underestimates myself sometimes.
You absolutely. And I hate to interrupt, but what I want to try to get to so everybody understands the position that you're talking about now, and the reason that you're even in a position to kind of advise and help mentor other people. You started this company called Leading from Anywhere, so we know what it is because you're an active participant and you started with our Nice Guy community. So talk about what Leading from Anywhere is, and then we can share how this might be something that other people might be able to take use of.
Yeah, well, it's about this concept basically of followers and leaders. And so the idea is that I'm helping people from all sort of walks of life. So the Leading from Anywhere idea comes of they can come from anywhere in the world, or they can come from anywhere within an organization. And the reason that people hire me, I got that off one of your recent podcasts. The reason that people hire me is because I help people to make tribes that are going to be fun to lead. They're going to be real communities that are going to add value to people, and they're going to create opportunities for everyone involved. And so that's really where I'm coming from. I want to put together a set of leaders who can help not just themselves and each other, but they can also help people who are in their tribes.
What's great about what you said is, and I'm trying to change the way that I say it too, because Fred Miller, who just recently came on the Nice Guys podcast, I don't even remember what episode it was. Strick might have to we'll put that in the show notes. He said, we're all a little bit fearful of asking for the business, and something when you do your elevator pitch or your elevator speech, we all need to say hire us, and you're 100% right. So be more specific though, so that we can really say, okay, well, I get what you're doing with leading from anywhere, but in a practical standpoint though, talk about how it applies to people that might be listening.
Okay, from a practical standpoint, we typically focus predominantly on Facebook groups, and typically people where there is kind of one person that is leading a small following. So it will typically be the sort of solopreneur kind of people who are, they've just sort of bridged a gap they've either just bridged a gap or within the sort of like the last year or two, where they've kind of gone from being an employee who is very, very talented at what they do, and are now thinking, right, well, I've now got to turn this into a tangible business. And the part of the picture that we pick up is how they're going to build that audience and how they're going to build that group of collection of people who are going to follow them and then become their advocates and their customers.
What's so great about what you did, and it's exactly what you did with the Nice Guy community. Dan came to us with the idea of, hey, you guys are doing a really good job on your show, but where is the engagement? And my answer was the same answer that I had been given probably for, a year or so before you even came to us, Dan. And it was, well, I'm engaging through my personal page on Facebook, or my personal, whatever you want to call it, my personal account on Facebook, and through Twitter. And there's some good engagement there. And you pretty much, I don't remember how you said it or how you presented it, but it was like, hey, well, that's great, but that's not good enough, because you really don't have a community. You're communicating with them, but they're not communicating with each other. And what's great about what we did was we created this environment where it was safe for everybody. Everybody that listens to the show knows us. The Nice Guy community, you know us. You know our off-kilter personality. You know that, when we use explicit language, we're not doing it as a harmful thing. We're just doing it just as a way to kind of express ourselves. And we can do that on the show, but again, it's still very one way. It's us going out thinking, oh shit, I hope people are kind of okay with the use of our language or the ideas that we come up with. And then when you get to a community and you start a Facebook community the way that Dan did for us, what's so great about it, Dan, is that now people are communicating back to us the way that we're communicating with them. And we all feel like a cohesive unit. I don't feel like the leader of this group. I just feel like I'm just one of the people that happens to be contributing to the group too. So share for a moment, and I guess that was a long ass way of me getting to this. Share what the importance of a community is for one's branding and one's message.
Okay, well, really, you've sort of hit the nail on the head in the explanation to the question. It's the difference between the fact that everyone can sort of broadcast to people, and you can be broadcasting into an empty hollow, or you can be talking and having a two-way engagement with people. And because you're having that two-way engagement with people, it's like with any sort of business relationship, you're going to do much better if you can talk two ways to people. You're kind of going to catch the attention of some people if you're broadcasting at them, but how much more engaging and interesting does it become when you become part of that conversation? And because they are then part of that conversation, the people who are the members in the Nice Guys community tell you things that they want, or they show you what really worked or what didn't work within the show. And obviously then you can think, right, well, we'll do more of that, or we'll get this guest in. Or if 10 people are saying, this is the person, this is the guy or the girl that you need to speak to, then we can obviously go, right, well, that's what we need to do as a business. And so it's because of that you can then shape your business and your brand and the content that you're putting out there to be exactly what it is that they want, rather than just trying to guess, which is what happens a lot of the time when you don't have that two-way conversation. it's your best guess.
I think what's so great about what you're saying is that your business really deals with getting below the surface. And I know you know how important relationships are. I want to expand upon it even a little bit more about talking about this sense of community and the engagement. Can you give some examples of what you do? And some of the things that you've done on our site, Dan, on the Facebook page are amazing, because you present these circumstances that are really, really interesting. I'm like, very thought-provoking. And so can you just share a couple of examples that might be fairly typical of what you might bring to a community, so that people can see exactly how this works?
Well, there's a couple of concepts that you can do which are quite popular. Really, there's one where you just get somebody within the group who is known within the group to come out with a very open and honest question, and because they sort of let themselves go in a bit of that story and a bit of that in a bit of a revealing way and saying about themselves, then people want to participate in that discussion. And so because they want to participate in that discussion, then they want to get involved, and they're more willing then to share their own things and their own lessons that they've learned and what they've done to get over problems.
Right.
And the other thing that actually proved really popular was putting the top 10 people who are communicating in the group into the Nice Guys.
Yeah,
that worked really well.
That was great. When you brought that up, I thought that was really a cool thing, and because it really, and then Strickland came up with the wise idea. He's like, hey, eliminate Doug and Strickland from and it made sense, because we're participating in we're posting all the time, so for us it's not fair. But then you start looking at, and I can't remember who was I think it was Tim Hill was the number one poster, and he does put up a lot of really funny posts. And then it's taking the show and it's bringing the show to, or it's bringing the page, the Facebook community, it's bringing it to the show, and then vice versa, it's bringing the show back to the community. So we're always promoting the show on the community, always promoting the community on the show, and it's almost like a group that people want to be a part of. At least that's my spin on it. Is that what you're doing it for, or what?
Yeah. And to be honest, with the top 10, you were the very first group that I tried it on.
Right, that's okay. That's all right. I don't mind.
I had a new toy and I was playing with it basically. And so because I just gotten used to that, I thought this will be really cool actually. And I think this is the kind of place that it will exactly work. Because of that, yeah, people, and what it showed was that people like being recognized for something that they're getting involved in. And because people like, it sort of makes sense that we like to be recognized for things.
Yeah.
And so when you put that recognition out to a top 10 members and even a few who are sort of close to that top 10, then actually it sort of makes everyone think, oh, right, well, they are sort of paying attention to the fact that I'm here and that I am getting involved in a two-way discussion, rather than it just being, that I sit there and don't really participate or get involved. Then you can have a better impression of who is actually most engaged. And it's just interesting to see sort of who comes out of the discussions and everything. And because of their being sort of awoken again because of this thread, then a lot of people then participate more over the next few days as well.
Right.
It just seems to up everything. So yeah, it's been brilliant overall.
Yeah, it totally has been. That top 10 list, that was very cool. And then the other thing that you did, which again, these are you would think that they're very strategic, or maybe they are very strategic, but you think they're very simple in their process. But I'll tell you, it really does work, and engagement is key, because we see things like we talk constantly on the show about recommending the show on Overcast or on iTunes, and you were brilliant again. You did, hey, we want to show that we're actually doing what the nice guys, what Doug and Strick are asking for on the show. And so there's this post about circle. I don't remember how you did it or what you did, but it was more like screenshots of the of people recommending. And again, just brilliant, because we got 60 or 70 recommendations on the show just as a result of us posting that on the community wall.
Yeah, I mean, and there's all sorts of things that happen like that as well, which it works across the board in different types of business. But typically with podcasts, it works excellently because of the way that both iTunes podcasts and Overcast work. Is they work on the recommendations, and the more recommendations and approval that you get, that more it builds on itself. So it's kind of like a snowball effect. And because
totally.
of that. It means that if you can get your community to then get engaged in that, then obviously it's going to keep on building upon itself. And so yeah.
So speaking of, sorry, again, I know we're going all over the place here, but I keep thinking as you throw in some words, I'm thinking things like community. And when you talked about community, I said, what a great thing. And I think that you actually put on the community wall, help me when I'm on the Nice Guys. Ask me some questions that you think would be important to that you would want to hear about. Again, you're brilliant with your approach of how to make it a full circle. Let's bring the community onto the show, and let's bring the show into the community. So I'm going to ask a community question. This is from USA number one Funkin' fan. I'll put you in the UK category of the number one Funkin' fan. But from Sean Carpenter, he says, serious question. Other than driving on the wrong side of the street and calling a toilet the loo, what differences do you see between success in business over in the UK and in the US? So an attitude, hustle, drive, relationship. So let's just talk about what differences you see between success here in the US and in UK.
It's very much an attitude and enthusiasm kind of thing. You get this is the reason why a lot of the sort of motivational speakers and things do a lot better in the USA, because people seem to be a bit more enthusiastic about things. And so if I can find that I can put the same content to an American audience and get a lot of enthusiasm for it very quickly, and then put it to a UK audience, and the first comment or response will be, yeah, I don't believe those numbers. I don't believe that that's true. And it's the same piece of content. It's just a different sort of mindset and way of thinking about it. And so I've found that typically with the USA, the gaining of enthusiasm and momentum is actually a lot easier. But what that means is then the UK people will kind of look through the numbers and try and work out why it happened.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine that does have it has its benefits, but it also does make things a bit trickier when you're trying to build momentum and a snowball effect.
I think that in the US, I think we've built everything upon a dream. In the UK, it's like, just show me the fucking numbers. Just, I want to see how they work out, and then I'll make a decision.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's for, it's no better or worse way. It's just an understanding of the different attitudes and the way that it happens. And because there is this enthusiasm, then you can build on things in a different way. And because you recognize that there are differences, then you've got to understand that you can tailor your message and your branding accordingly to suit, depending on where you want your audience and your tribe members to be from.
Agreed. Tim Hill writes, and again, he is the, I would say, let's see, if Sean is the USA number one Funkin' fan and you're the UK number one Funkin' fan, I would say that Tim Hill is the best drinker Funkin' fan. He wants to know about some books that you've read that have kind of helped you to get where you are today, Dan. And what's so mind-blowing is I've watched this reinvention, let's call it. I've watched this reinvention of you take place over the last, but in the last year or two? I mean, it had to be in the last 2 years, because I think that you came to me as a result of the show. Is that right or not right?
Yes, I did. I came to you as a result of the show. Yes, and basically there are so many books that I could actually recommend, and because I used to read even more so than I do now. But have you ever heard of Tom Shoes?
No, I don't know Tom Shoes. Talk to me about him.
Okay, there's a guy called Blake Mycoskie who started a company called Tom's Shoes.
Oh, Tom's Shoes. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought that was a book you were referring to. I'm like, yeah, I know. Tom's.
Yeah, he's written a book called Start Something That Matters, explaining his strategy and his thinking behind that. And so I think that is probably one of my favorite books of all time, because it talks about this concept of how it's not only an altruistic thing, what he's done with his buying one shoes, give one pair of shoes away. It's actually really good for his business, because if you think about it, everyone that buys one of those pairs of shoes is going to go and tell at least one person about why they bought that pair of shoes. And so the marketing message is incredible behind that, because it's kind of like a feel-good story that everyone wants to tell their friends. And so they don't have to then, you might say, oh, that's expensive, they've got to pay for the pair of shoes. But come on, they're doing good work there, at the same time as getting everyone who gets a pair of their shoes to tell at least one other person. And frankly, I think that most people probably tell 10, 15 people. And so it's built this company out of nowhere, really, which has this sort of charity message and its good business sense message. And it's part of what I actually teach when I'm teaching.
No, and it's right on point with what you're teaching too. It really is all about community. Is not about advertising. Community really is about word of mouth, really projecting the organization or the company or the podcast or whatever it is that you're dealing with forward. And especially when you're dealing with a solopreneur, entrepreneur, very very small company, I would say, a handful of people or less. Very rare that you even have a budget for that kind of stuff. So the whole sense of community idea, Dan, I mean, again, share numbers if you would, please. And I'm okay with you sharing our numbers, but it does not have to be a community of thousands. What numbers typically are a good number that you want to have in a community to help you really project your business forward?
If I was to say for the individual ones that I'm working on, the core sort of the closest sort of 10 to 15 that I work on have probably got somewhere between 100 and about 500 people in them. Mm-hmm. But we have a few outliers, and there's one which is a sort of a growth hacking community that I help with, which is basically this concept of win at all costs and get as many members as you can. I'm sort of helping them out as well. And so I do the sort of community side, and then they do the growing the numbers exponentially. Mm-hmm. And so that one's gone about that. I think that's just hit 21,000 members. That
oh
one.
My gosh, that's amazing.
But it's so different to my way of thinking, which is why they've got me in, because I work on the slow and steady wins the race, and they will go for the numbers and they will find a way to grow the numbers, and they are phenomenal at it, which is why you combine it and it makes such a powerful group. But most of them are somewhere up to about 500. And but that's the thing. And I'm even finding now in the last, probably since Christmas, that we're finding that some of them will grow by 50 in a week. And then obviously that 500 is quickly going to be an old number in a few months' time, because if they keep on growing at 50 a week, there's not much space before 500.
Right.
So I can see it. I can see me saying by the end of the year that, anything up to 2,000 is a very standard number. It would be my estimation.
And how about engagement though? Because I think that's really the key. It's not what your numbers are in your group. You could have 500 in the group, but if you only have 2 people that are engaged, you really only have 2 people in the group. You don't have 500. You're the 498 are no good. Is there a certain percentage that you're expecting to really hold on to the engagement?
And typically across social media, you're probably looking for something like 5% is actually really good.
Okay.
But it depends on the community, because if you get to a certain size of community and 5% of people are interacting with every message, then it can actually get quite noisy.
Yeah.
And that will then put people off. So it's kind of a really hard balance of when you get to that certain number, how do you make it and you get quality rather than quantity?
Yeah.
Because if all 500 people come onto the message board element and post a new message every day, then who's going to have time to read through all that? And we all have other things to do, so it's kind of like, where does this balance land? And so I would say you're probably really looking at, you want your sort of 10 to 50 most hardcore fans who are going to be the people who are engaging more often, and then you're probably looking at your 5% who are engaging once a week or twice a week kind of thing. I think that's probably the ideal.
The numbers are fascinating, and it is very interesting to watch. And you're right on point with your information. That is about what we have on a regular basis that are engaged. And you're right. I don't want to have to look at 50 or 60 comments. I like when we have a handful of comments that are made and a handful of good questions. And I really do enjoy the sense of community that you've created. Let's move on to another portion of the show. I've recently changed my blog format on my website to offer tools, tips, and tricks that I was presenting to my community over on my blog. And then I thought, hey, this would be a really cool thing to bring over to the podcast as well. So let's spend a moment just talking about 3 things, and you can have we give the interviewee a chance to pass on any of the 3 of them, but we ask you if you can come up with 2 tools, tips, or tricks. So tools would be a piece of technology that you're using. Tips would be something that you could advise as an action step for the Nice Guy community that's listening, and a trick maybe some sort of life hack. So you want to start with tools?
Yeah, okay. In terms of a tool, I would recommend Social Jukebox. I think, I'm definitely sure it's one that you're aware of.
Yeah.
And you may even have introduced me to the idea. But essentially all it is it's a kind of like a collection of messages that then get sent out to social media according to different rules that you set. And because of this, if you've got sort of evergreen content that you like to share or links to a certain part of the blog or website, then you can do this once and then you've done it forever, which is obviously a very powerful time-saving tool.
Oh, definitely. All right. How about a tip, something that that you do on a regular basis that would maybe be an action item that the Nice Guy community can put into place?
Okay, I would say a tip is to make sure that you plan your following week the Friday before. It doesn't matter that you're probably going to work over the weekend if you're anything like me. The whole way of the mindset of it is the fact that before you shut down on a Friday, you are ready for the next week. And because you have set that up and you are prepared, then you don't sit there on Monday morning thinking, oh, right, what am I going to do today? Oh, let me have a look at Facebook and just dance around and do this on that. And that's especially pertinent to me because I spend a lot of my life on Facebook professionally. And so I could quickly get sucked into doing something else if I wasn't already planned about what I was going to be doing. So I have to know, right, I have to go into certain groups and do certain activities on a Monday morning. Otherwise, I'm letting down my contracts and I'm letting down people who are good friends of mine. So because I've got those things that I need to do that are those activities, then it obviously sets me up right for the day, for the week. So.
All right. Excellent. And how about a trick? Do you have any life hacks that seem to work well for you?
Oh, dear. No, I can't really think about it. I mean, the best one that I have is to try and tie two motivations to anything. So whenever I'm fairly anxious and struggle to speak properly at certain times. And so because I had that problem, I decided that I needed to learn it for my business. And I needed to learn it because I'm best man at my best friend's wedding later on this year. And because I tied it into the dual motivation, you can imagine it's skyrocketed my abilities over the last 6 months because, I can't let either of those things down. So I have to do it.
No, I totally get it. It's great. Find another reason, not just the primary reason why you have to be motivated, but find the secondary reason too. And that'll keep your ass in gear. That's what it sounds like for me, for you, right?
Yeah, definitely. If it's not one, it's the other.
All right, Dan, I'm going to go into our rapid fire Q&A. I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and your job is to answer the question, spend 5 or 10 seconds just answering the question. I'm going to do my best not to step on you, although that is the area that I suck at the most. So let's try it right here. So be relatable, Dan. What do you suck at?
I suck at standing up for myself. I've got a horrible habit of just going, right, well, I'll do something light and then end up getting fully involved and getting involved in the nitty gritty of something when I was only supposed to be lightly involved.
I can relate to that too. I have a very tough time with the no word. So, but yeah, I think you put out a post on the community wall, as a matter of fact, just saying, "Hey, help me say no. Give me some ways that I can say no to other people." And that was really good because you involved the community. So it helped you in 2 ways. It helped you to get more engagement in the community, and it's resolved your problem. Well, it gave you potential solutions for your problem as well.
Well, you remember me earlier saying that was one of the 2 things that I said that was a good idea to do in any group.
Yeah.
Get somebody who's known in the group to do that.
Right.
And it's funny how powerful it is.
It's totally powerful. All right, be transparent. How did you pay your bills when you first got going, Dan?
My wife is very understanding.
Yeah, that she is for sure.
Oh dear, yeah. Basically, it's a combination of her being very understanding, and she has a well-paid job as well. And so it was a case of doing that and working. I do a number of short-term projects for startups, and so I had one recently where I worked with a record-breaking Kickstarter project, and so I worked with them to try and get them more sales up in the lead up to Christmas. And so it's with their sort of social media platforms. So yeah, it's a combination of those 2 things that have been used to keep me going at the start.
All right, be confident. What do you do as an entrepreneur that's as good as it gets, Dan?
I think that's down to the building relationships. I think that a lot of people will look at somebody and say, I can't get access to them, and then I will give them a strategy and we can disprove that doubt that they've got. And you can simply use a few tactics and a few ways, and you can get access to, I did a top 10 article, and I now speak regularly to half the people who are on there just by using the tactics. So yeah, I would relay that to anyone and say you can do a lot better. and you can get hold of lots of people.
Excellent. Yeah, and it's certain if you're just a persistent, Ariana Huffington and Gary Vaynerchuk and Dan Harris and Jeffrey Hazlett did not come to this show because they were asked once. I promise you, they all came because it was consistent persistency. Be humble, Dan. What experts do you need to call upon to make shit happen when it's just not happening?
Oh, I've called upon you a few times, even in this. There's also a collection of coaches who I speak to. There's Amanda, there's Stephen, there's a guy called Delboy. There's actually a lady who has actually helped me put together my course, who is probably the best coach I think I've individually worked with. A lady called Colette Mason, and she's a books coach, really. But she said, "Oh, I'm spanning out to doing courses, and I know you want to be doing a course." And I think maybe a couple of the things that I'm missing are exactly what she is very good at. And so she will kick me if I'm overthinking or trying to make something super perfect when it's no more perfect than it was 2 weeks ago. But I've been nitpicking and sort of trying to find something. So I think she's probably the number one person that I've called upon recently.
And I think that if we all have somebody in our life that is there to kind of, like Dan said, just kick us, I would say kick us in the ass. I would say that is probably, that's the thing that we need the most, because being held accountable, it's really hard. If I tell Dan that I'm going to do something and I don't do it, because I remember you asked for, and I'm not going to put your business on the spot here because you did such a great job of putting your courses together, and it's certainly it's worth promoting. But when you first put it together, you said, "Hey, can you put together a testimonial for me?" And I thought, no problem at all. And then and I was not going to let you down. So for me, it was like, I promised him that I'm going to do it. I don't have any time to do it, but I don't care. I promised him, and he's done so much stuff for our community. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to spend my next few hours, and I'm going to do exactly what I said I'm going to do. When you start telling people that you're going to do stuff for them, you can't go back on it. It just doesn't show goodwill. It doesn't show consistency. It doesn't show that you actually are believable if you don't tell the truth. So for me, it really is get somebody to be held accountable to. There we go. I told you I wasn't going to step on anything you said. And here I am. I'm monologuing on this entire thing that you told me.
It makes a lot of sense, though, because when people are leading a group, they will be surprised when they display a certain behavior and then everyone copies it. And it's kind of like, if you're going to put something out there in public, then that is how people are going to perceive you.
Exactly.
And because you put out there in public, I'm going to succeed in doing this, then you can't help but feel more like you have to do it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Dan, I gave you 4 words. I put them in the little chat box for you. I want you to put them in priority order for me. Employees, customers, products, systems.
Okay, I think a few people would tell you that I'm systems first, but I would say I'm probably customers first, in the sense that they are members, clients, and audience. And then I would say that they feed into the products, and the combination of what comes out of those two is then put into systems. And the only reason that employees would come last is because I don't have any, and I don't really intend to for the near future. So yeah, I couldn't really put them anywhere else.
All right, awesome. Again, there's no right, no wrong. It's just the order, and it depends on who you are and where you are in your life that you order those things. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question about just about yourself. If you had to put a song title to something that represented your entire life, what would it be?
It would be "Why Don't You Get a Job?" It's by a band called The Offspring, who, I mean, I've got a bit of a different sort of sense of music from most people. But yeah, it's basically the biggest question I sort of get asked at the moment is how I cope without a job. And it's kind of like, yeah, I'm not really without a job. It's like, what do you do in the day? And I think I'm the busiest, supposedly unemployed person.
Yeah.
As lots of people see it, that there is. So yeah, so I think that's quite telling. I think there's a little bit of irony in there, but it's something that a lot of people ask me, whether they are rightly or wrongly asking me that is another question.
All right, so Dan, you've heard me ask this question to everybody that has come onto the show as an interview subject over the last year or so since you've been listening to the show and participating in the Nice Guy community. Do you have an iPhone or do you have something inferior?
Of course I have an iPhone.
Let's get Strickland to edit that right into the beginning of the show. Of course he's got of course he's got an iPhone, of course. Go to your photo app. What is the last thing you took a photo of?
You see, it wasn't the last thing I took a photo of, but it's the last photo on my phone is a sign saying no dad dancing at my wife's friend's wedding.
Okay.
And then the second to last is a photo of me and one of our friends' dad dancing.
What is dad dancing?
Dancing really badly and embarrassingly.
Dad dancing. I get it.
Yeah, and so it was basically, that was a little while back, but yeah, so they obviously thought that was funny and thought they'd send it to me recently to wind me up, but yeah.
And go to your texting app. What is the last text you either sent or received?
It was my wife saying good luck on the show.
Oh man, that's so great. Yeah. So you actually shared with somebody that you were coming on the show today. We're not a total embarrassment for you.
Yeah, I mean, she's at home with her parents this weekend, so it has been this weekend, so.
Excellent. Dan, if our community, those that are most loyal to all of us, if they would like to get in touch with you to take advantage of the services that you provide or understand a little bit more about how to lead from anywhere, how can they do that, Dan?
Okay, so there's either my website, which is leadingfromanywhere.com, or if you email me, which is dan@leadingfromanywhere.com, then you'll get hold of me that way. And you can also find me in the Nice Guys community.
Oh my gosh, so true. Dan, I cannot express the amount of appreciation that both Strick and I and the entire community have for all of the stuff that you have done. You really have been a godsend to us. So thank you for being a part of the community.
Yeah, it's great to feel part of the show. So.
Oh, you are not
brilliant.
A part of the show. You are the show. Yeah, you totally are. Without you, we don't have a show. So, Dan, thank you so much. And Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Dan Rice for being a part of the show. Hey, you want to tell Steve O'Brien? Do you know how to do that part?
What do I tell him?
Yeah, tell him to take us out of here. Go ahead.
Go on then, Steve O'Brien. Take us out of here.
Click on the Patreon link in the show notes. And for as little as $2 a month, you can help support the podcast and get access to fun bonus content. That's like half a cup of Starbucks coffee once a month, a grande, double shot, maybe a little flavoring. Thanks for listening. I mean, seriously, you need to cut back on your caffeine anyway.